Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Understanding Business 2024. Chapter 8. Narrated by Omar Mohsen Ibrahim Fouad. Structuring Organizations for Today's Challenges. Page 196. Learning Objectives. After you have read and studied this chapter, you should be able to LO 8-1 outline the basic principles of organizational management. LO 8-2 compare the organizational theories of Fayol and Weber. LO 8-3 evaluate the choices managers make in structuring organizations. LO 8-4 contrast the various organizational models. LO 8-5 identify the benefits of inter-firm cooperation and coordination. LO 8-6 explain how organizational culture can help businesses adapt to change. Page 197. Getting to know Claudia San Pedro, former president of Sonic Drive-In. For more than 70 years, the Oklahoma-based fast food chain Sonic has served burgers and shakes in old-style drive-in locations where people park their cars and wait for their orders to be delivered, sometimes by servers on roller skates. As luck would have it, this business model turned out to be perfect during a pandemic where everyone was trying to keep their distance from one another. Of course, Sonic's tried and true drive-in restaurants were not only the reason the company saw sales rise by a whopping 20% in 2020. Much of the credit goes to company president Claudia San Pedro, who helped solve a number of key problems in the years before the COVID-19 pandemic that then allowed Sonic to invest in some major technological upgrades. These innovations streamlined operations at the company's more than 3,500 locations throughout the United States, creating conditions for a future that should be as sweet as a sonic blast. San Pedro was born in Mexico City and moved to the United States when she was 2 years old, so her dad could complete his medical education. He had to take a crash course in English before classes began. And San Pedro herself did not learn to read or write in the language until a caring teacher worked with her every day after kindergarten. My parents kept speaking Spanish in the home, so I'm bilingual, which is such a gift, said San Pedro. They, as do I, have and had a strong sense of pride in living and working in America, and also a strong sense of pride in our Mexican heritage. Education and extracurriculars were important for her as well. She excelled academically in high school, in addition to serving on the student council and playing violin and piano. After falling in love with the East Coast on campus visits, San Pedro enrolled at Smith College in Massachusetts, where she earned a bachelor's degree in economics. It was a transforming experience for me, said San Pedro. I met people from around the world and studied in an environment that encouraged me to think differently and independently and ask questions and challenge things. She graduated and got a job in Oklahoma's state government, where she worked as a budget analyst for lawmakers. I love working with numbers because of the stories they tell, including the difference that funding can make to families of people who are developmentally disabled or in early childhood education programs, said San Pedro. While working in the public sector brought plenty of rewards, she was ready for a new challenge after about a decade and a half in government. San Pedro's next destination was Sonic, which she joined as vice president of investor relations before working her way up to chief financial officer. In 2015. 3 years later, she was named president of the company, a role that came with new obstacles that San Pedro had not yet encountered in her career. Once again, though, she proved up to the challenge, along with upgrading the chain's technology and easing operational issues for franchisees. She reversed a long-running sales decline while also brokering the brand's sale to an outside firm for $2.3 billion. And this was all before 2020, when San Pedro's most difficult task began. The onset of the pandemic unleashed a wave of uncertainty that sent the company scrambling to keep up. Every day, our leadership team met with our food safety and health team to determine what the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, was saying, identify what we needed to change at our drive-ins to enable ourselves to continue business operations and to make sure our team members and guests felt secure when they came on the lot, said San Pedro. These brainstorming sessions led the company to double down on its mobile app and contactless payment capabilities, which would soon become the envy of the industry. Sales skyrocketed as a result, and San Pedro was named the 2022 Restaurant Leader of the Year for her foresight. Leading Sonic Drive-In through these challenging times has taught me so much about what this brand means to our guests, team members, and franchisees, said San Pedro. In April 2023, San Pedro left Sonic in order to attend to family medical issues. This chapter is about changing and adapting organizations to today's markets, as Claudia San Pedro did at Sonic. Most managers never face challenges that big, but there are plenty of opportunities in every firm to use the principles of organizing to manage and benefit from change. Page 198. Name that company. This company's CEO mandated that the organization would flatten its management structure and pursue a year of efficiency, even though it meant cutting its managerial ranks. The objective was to make the company a more fun place to work. Name that company. Find the answer in the chapter. Organizing for Success, LO 8-1. Outline the basic principles of organizational management. You may be wondering why so many organizations fail. Adjusting to changing markets is a normal function in a capitalist economy. There will be big winners like Amazon, Google, Tesla, and Nike, and big losers as well. The key to success is remaining flexible enough to adapt to the changing times. Often that means going back to basic organizational principles and rebuilding the firm on a sound foundation. This chapter begins by discussing such basic principles. Building an organization from the bottom up. No matter the size of the business, the principles of organization are much the same. Let's say you and two friends plan to start a lawn mowing business. One of the first steps is to organize your business. Organizing or structuring begins with determining what work needs to be done: mowing, edging, trimming, and then dividing up the tasks among the three of you. This is called a division of labor. One of you might have a special talent for trimming bushes, while another is better at mowing. The success of a firm often depends on management's ability to identify each worker's strengths and assign the right tasks to the right person. Many jobs can be done quickly and well when each person specializes. Dividing tasks into smaller jobs is called job specialization. For example, you might divide the mowing task into mowing, trimming, and raking. If your business is successful, you'll probably hire more workers to help. You might organize them into teams or departments to do the various tasks. One team might mow while another uses blowers to clean up leaves and debris. If you're really successful over time, you might hire an accountant to keep records, various people to handle advertising, and a crew to maintain the equipment. The principles of organization apply to businesses of all sizes, from major corporations and skyscrapers to people working as landscapers. Structuring the business, making an appropriate division of labor using job specialization and departmentalization, establishing procedures, and assigning authority are tasks found in most firms. How do these principles operate at your current or most recent job? You can see how your business might evolve into a company with several departments: production, mowing, and everything related to that, marketing, accounting, and finance, and maintenance. The process of setting up individual departments to do specialized tasks is called departmentalization. Finally, you'll assign authority and responsibility to people so that you can control the whole process. If something went wrong in the accounting department, for example, you would know who was responsible. Structuring an organization, then, consists of devising a division of labor, sometimes resulting in specialization. Setting up teams or departments to do specific tasks like production and accounting, and assigning responsibility and authority to people. It also includes allocating resources, such as funds for various departments, assigning specific tasks, and establishing procedures for accomplishing the organizational objectives. From the start, you have to make ethical decisions about how you'll treat your workers and how you will benefit the community. See Making Ethical Decisions box, page 199. Making ethical decisions. Money or safety? You make the call. Imagine you have begun a successful lawn mowing service in your neighborhood. Other lawn mowing services in the area seem to hire untrained workers. They pay only the minimum wage or slightly more. Often, they don't provide safety equipment. Workers don't have ear protection against loud mowers and blowers. Most don't wear goggles when operating the shredder. Very few wear masks when spraying potentially harmful fertilizers and other chemicals. You are aware there are many hazards connected with your services, but safety gear can be expensive and workers often prefer to work without it. You are interested in making as much money as possible, but you also are concerned about the safety and welfare of your workers. You know yard maintenance equipment creates noise pollution, but more sophisticated landscaping equipment is expensive. The corporate culture you create as you begin your service will last a long time. If you emphasize safety and environmental concern from the start, your workers will adopt your values. On the other hand, you can see the potential for making faster profits by ignoring safety rules and paying little attention to the overall work environment. Will you provide and mandate the safety procedures and equipment, or hope things will be fine without it? What are the consequences of your decision? How would you feel about yourself? You may develop an organization chart discussed later in this chapter that shows relationships among people. Who is accountable for the completion of specific work and who reports to whom? Finally, you'll monitor the environment to see what competitors are doing and what customers are demanding. Then, you must adjust to the new realities. For example, a major lawn care company may begin promoting itself in your area. You might have to make some organizational changes to offer even better service at competitive prices. What would you do first if you began losing business competitors? What would you do first if you began losing business to competitors? The changing organization. LO 8-2. Compare the organizational theories of Fayol and Weber. Never before in the history of business has so much change been introduced so quickly. As we noted early As we noted earlier in chapters, much change is due to evolving business environment, more global competition, faster technological change, and pressure to preserve the natural environment. Equally important to many businesses is the change in customer expectations. Consumers today expect high-quality products and fast, friendly service at a reasonable cost. Doug Rauch, former president of Trader Joe's, viewed employees and customers as two wings of a bird. You need both of them to fly. They go together. If you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers. When your customers are happier and they enjoy shopping, it also makes your employees' lives happier. So it's a virtuous cycle. Managing change, then, has become a critical managerial function that sometimes includes changing the whole organizational structure. For example, technology giant Google restructured its organization into a conglomerate called Alphabet. Alphabet consists of independent units, including Google, the search engine, YouTube, online video sharing platform, Mandiant, cybersecurity, Verily, healthcare and disease prevention, Nest, smart home products, and several others. These smaller units have more flexibility to listen to customers and adapt accordingly. Such changes can occur in nonprofit and government organizations as well as businesses. Page 200. Many organizations in the past were designed more to facilitate management than to please the customer. Companies designed many rules and regulations to give managers control over employees. As you'll learn later in this chapter, this reliance on rules is called bureaucracy. The government often has to wrestle with bureaucracy just as businesses do. To understand where we are in organizational design today, it helps to know where we've been. We'll look at that subject next. The development of organizational design. Until the 20th century, most businesses were rather small. The processes for producing goods were relatively simple, and organizing workers was fairly easy. Organizing workers is still not too hard in most small firms, such as a lawn mowing service or a small shop that produces custom-made boats. Not until the 1900s and the introduction of mass production methods for efficiently producing large quantities of goods did production processes and business organization. Not until the 1900s and the introduction of mass production methods for efficiently producing large quantity of goods did production process and business organization become so complex. Usually, the bigger the plant, the more efficient production became. Business growth led to economies of scale. This term refers to the fact that companies can reduce their production costs by purchasing raw materials in bulk. Thus, the average cost of goods decreases as production levels rise. The cost of building a car, for example, declined sharply when automobile companies adopted mass production and GM, Ford, and others introduced their huge factories and assembly lines. Over time, such innovations became less meaningful as other companies copied the processes. During the mass during the area of mass production, organizational theorists emerged. Two influential thinkers were Henry Fayol and Max Weber. Many of their principles are still being used in businesses throughout the world. Let's explore these principles. Henry Fayol introduced several management principles still followed today, including the idea that each worker should report to only one manager, and that managers, in turn, should have the right to give orders for others to follow and the power to enforce them. Which of Fayol's principles have you observed? Fayol's principles of organization. In France, economic theoretician Henry Fayol published his book, Administration Industrielle et Générale, in 1919. It was popularized in the United States in 1949 under the title General and Industrial Management. Fayol introduced such principles as the following. Unity of command. Each worker is to report to one and only one boss. The benefits of this principle are obvious. What happens if two different managers give you two different assignments? Which one should you follow? To prevent such confusion, each person should report to only one manager. Later, we'll discuss an organizational plan that seems to violate this principle. Hierarchy of authority. All workers should know to whom they report. Managers should have the right to give orders and expect others to follow. As we discussed in Chapter 7, this concept has changed over time, and empowerment is often more important now. Division of labor. Functions are to be divided into areas of specialization, such as production, marketing, and finance. This principle, too, is being modified. As you'll read later, and cross-functional teamwork is getting more emphasis. Subordination of individual interests to the general interest. Workers are to think of themselves as a coordinated team. The goals of the team are more important than the goals of the individual workers. This concept is still very much in use. Have you heard this concept being applied to football and basketball teams? Did you see this principle at work in the latest Super Bowl? Authority. Managers have the right to give orders and the power to enforce compliance. Authority and responsibility are related. Whenever authority is exercised, responsibility arises. The principle is also being modified as managers empower employees. Degree of centralization. The amount of decision-making power vested in top management should vary by circumstances. In a small organization, it's possible to centralize all decision-making power in the top manager. In a larger organization, however, some decision-making power for both major and minor issues should be delegated to lower-level managers and employees. Clear communication channels. All workers should be able to reach others in the organization quickly and easily. Order. Materials and people should be placed and maintained in the proper location. Equity. A manager should treat employees and peers with respect and justice. Esprit de corps. A spirit of pride and loyalty should be created among people in the firm. Page 201. Management courses in colleges throughout the world taught Fayol's principles for years, and they became synonymous with the concept of management. Organizations were designed so that no person had more than one boss. Lines of authority were clear, and everyone knew to whom they reported. Naturally, these principles tended to be written down as rules, policies, and regulations. As organizations grew larger, that process of rulemaking has often led to rather rigid organizations that haven't always responded quickly to consumer requests. For example, in various cities, the Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV, has been slow to adapt to customer needs. So where did the idea of bureaucracy come from? We talk about that next. Max Weber and organizational theory. Max Weber's book, The Theory of Social and Economic Organizations, like Fayol's, appeared in the United States in the late 1940s. Weber, pronounced Weber, a German sociologist and economist, promoted the pyramid-shaped organizational structure that became popular in large firms. Weber put great trust in managers and felt the firm would do well if employees simply did what they were told. The less decision-making they had to do, the better. Clearly, this is a reasonable way to operate if you're dealing with relatively uneducated and untrained workers. Such was generally the case at the time Weber was writing. Most employees today, however, have considerably more education and technical skills. Weber's principles of organization resembled Fayol's. In addition, Weber emphasized job descriptions, written rules, decision guidelines, and detailed records. Consistent procedures, regulations, and policies, staffing and promotion based on qualifications. Weber believed that large organizations demanded clearly established rules and guidelines to be followed precisely. In other words, he was in favor of bureaucracy. Although his principles made sense at the time, rules and procedures became so rigid in some companies that they grew counterproductive. Some organizations today still thrive on Weber's theories. United Parcel Service, UPS, for example, maintains strict written rules and decision guidelines. Those rules enable the firm to deliver packages quickly because the employees don't have to pause to make decisions. Procedures are clearly spelled out for them. Some organizations that follow Weber's principles are less effective than UPS because they don't allow employees to respond quickly to new challenges. Later, we explore how to make organizations more responsive. First, let's look at some basic organizational terms and concepts. Max Weber promoted an organizational structure composed of middle managers who implement the orders of top managers. He believes less educated workers were best managed if supervisors gave them strict rules and regulations to follow and monitored their performance. What industries or businesses today would benefit by such? What industries or businesses today would benefit by using such controls? Turning principles into organizational design. Following theories like Fayol's and Weber's, managers in the late 1900s began designing organizations so that managers could control workers. Many companies are still organized that way, with everything set up in a hierarchy. A hierarchy is a system in which one person is at the top of the organization, and there is a ranked sequential ordering from the top down of managers and others who are responsible to that person. Since one person can't keep track of thousands of workers, the top manager needs many lower level managers to help. The chain of command is the line of authority that moves from the top of the hierarchy to the lowest level. Figure 8.1 shows a typical hierarchy on an organization chart. An organization chart is a visual device that shows relationships among people and divides the organization's work. It shows who reports to whom. Page 202. Figure 8.1. Typical organization chart. This is a rather standard chart with managers for each. This is a rather standard chart with managers for major functions and supervisors reporting to the managers. Each supervisor manages 3 employees. President, Manager A Production, Manager B Marketing, Manager C Finance. First line supervisor. Some organizations have a dozen or more layers of management between the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, and the lowest level employees. If employees want to introduce work changes, they ask a supervisor, the first level of management, who asks their manager, who asks a manager at the next level up, and so on. It can take weeks or months for a decision to be made and passed from manager to manager until it reaches employees. At one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer, for example, there were once 17 layers between the chief executive and the lowest employee. It's doubtful Pfizer would have been able to develop a successful COVID-19 vaccine if it operated under its past structure. Max Weber used the word bureaucrat to describe a middle manager whose function was to implement top management orders. Thus, bureaucracy came to be the term for an organization with many layers of managers. When employees in a bureaucracy of any size have to ask managers for permission to make a change, the process may take so long that customers become annoyed. Has this happened to you in a department store or other organization? Since customers want efficient service and they want it now, Slow service is simply not acceptable in today's competitive firms. Some companies are therefore reorganizing to let employees make decisions in order to please customers no matter what. Home Depot adopted this approach to win more customers from competitors. Nordstrom employees can't accept a return from a customer without managerial approval on a case-by-case basis. As you read earlier in this book, giving employees such authority is called empowerment. Remember that empowerment works only when employees are given the proper training and resources to respond. Can you see how such training would help first responders in crisis conditions? Test prep. What do the terms division of labor and job specialization mean? What are the principles of management outlined by Fouad? What did Weber add to the principles of Fouad? Page 203. Decisions to make in structuring organizations. LO 8-3. Evaluate the choices managers make in structuring organizations. When designing responsive organizations, firms have to make decisions about several organizational issues. 1. Centralization versus decentralization. 2. Span of control. 3. Tall versus flat organizational structures. And 4. Departmentalization. Choosing centralized or decentralized authority. Centralized authority occurs when decision-making is concentrated at the top level of management. Burger King had a long-standing, globally centralized structure in which most major decisions were made by a core management team. After Burger King became a part of Restaurant Brands International, CEO Josh Kobza felt the company needed to empower its regional businesses unit leaders around the world. He relaxed the strong centralized authority and gave some autonomy to regional managers to respond to local market changes. McDonald's believes that purchasing, promotion, and other such decisions are best handled centrally too. However, today's rapidly changing markets, added to global differences in consumer tastes, tend to favor some decentralization. However, today's rapidly changing markets, added to global differences in consumer tastes, tend to favor some decentralization and thus more delegation of authority. McDonald's restaurants in Australia offer a chili donut and in France, a croquet McDo, a hot ham and cheese sandwich. Those in Japan sell rice, and Chinese McDonald's restaurants offer taro pai. Decentralized authority occurs when decision-making is delegated to lower-level managers and employees more familiar with local conditions than headquarters managements could be. This is particularly true in many large retail stores. Macy's customers in California, for example, demand clothing styles different from what customers in Minnesota or Maine like. It makes sense to delegate to store managers in their 722 stores in various cities the authority to buy, price, and promote merchandise appropriate for each area. Figure 8.2 lists some advantages and disadvantages of centralized and decentralized authority. Figure 8.2 Advantages and disadvantages of centralized versus decentralized authority. Advantages, disadvantages, centralized, decentralized. Greater top management control, more efficiency, simpler distribution system, stronger brand and corporate image. Better adaptation to customer wants, more empowerment of workers, faster decision making, higher morale. Less responsiveness to customers, less empowerment, interorganizational conflict, lower morale away from headquarters, less efficiency, complex distribution system, less top management control, weakened corporate image. Choosing the appropriate span of control. Span of control describes the optimal number of employees a manager supervises or should supervise. What is the right span of control? At lower levels, where work is standardized, it's possible to implement a broad span of control, 15 to 40 workers. For example, one supervisor can be responsible for 20 or more workers assembling computers or cleaning movie theaters. The appropriate span gradually narrows at higher levels of the organization because work becomes less standardized and managers and workers need more face-to-face communication. The trend today is to expand the span of control as organizations adopt empowerment, reduce the number of middle managers, and hire more talented and better educated employees in non-management positions. Information technology also allows managers to handle more information, so the span can be broader still. A broad span of control allows one supervisor to be responsible for many workers whose tasks are predictable and standardized. In addition to assembly lines, can you think of other management situations that might benefit from a broad span of control? What about in a service industry? Page 204. Choosing between tall and flat organizational structures. In the early 20th century, organizations grew bigger and bigger, adding layer after layer of management to create tall organizational structures. As noted earlier, some had as many as 17 levels, and the span of control was small. Few people reported to each manager. Imagine how a message might be distorted as it moved up the organization and backed down through managers, management assistants, supervisors, trainers, administrative assistants, secretaries, and so on. The cost of all these managers and support people was high. The paperwork they generated was enormous, and the inefficiencies in communication and implementing decisions were often intolerable. More recently, organizations have adopted flat organizational structures with fewer layers of management, see figure 8.3, and a broad span of control. Many people report to each manager. Flat structures can respond readily to customer demands because employees in lower level positions often have authority and responsibility for making decisions, and managers can be spared many day-to-day tasks. In a bookstore with a flat organizational structure, employees may have authority to arrange shelves by category, process special orders for customers, recommend specific books for customers, and so on. Figure 8.3, a flat organizational structure, owner and manager. Large organizations use flat structures to try to match the friendliness of small firms, whose workers often know customers by name. The flatter organizations become the broader their spans of control. The flatter organizations become the broader their spans of control, and yes, some managers lose their jobs. For example, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has mandated that Facebook will flatten its management ranks as part of its year of efficiency. He noted that slimming the firm's managerial ranks will make Meta a more fun place to work. Figure 8.4 lists advantages and disadvantages of narrow and broad spans of control. Figure 8.4 advantages and disadvantages of a narrow versus a broad span of control. The flatter the organization, the broader the span of control. Advantages, disadvantages, broad, narrow. Reduced costs, more responsiveness to customers, faster decision making, more empowerment, more control by top management, more chances for advancement, greater specialization, closer supervision, fewer chances for advancement, overworked managers, loss of control, less management expertise, less empowerment, higher costs, delayed decision making, less responsiveness to customers. Weighing the advantages and disadvantages of departmentalization. Departmentalization divides organizations into separate units. The traditional way to departmentalize is by function, such as design, production, marketing, and accounting. Departmentalization groups workers according to their skills, expertise, or resource use so that they can specialize and work together more effectively. It may also save costs and thus improve efficiency. Other advantages include the following. 1. Employees can develop skills in depth and progress within a department as they master more skills. 2. The company can achieve economies of scale by centralizing all the resources it needs and locate various experts in that area. 3. Employees can coordinate work within the function, and top management can easily direct and control various departments' activities. Page 205. Disadvantages of departmentalization by function include the following. 1. Departments may not communicate well. For example, production may be so isolated from marketing that it does not get needed feedback from customers. 2. Employees may identify with their department's goals rather than the organization's. The purchasing department may find a good value somewhere and buy a huge volume of goods. That makes purchasing look good, but the high cost of storing the goods hurts overall profitability. 3. The company's response to external changes may be slow. 4. People may not be trained to take different managerial responsibilities. Rather, they tend to become narrow specialists. 5. Department members may engage in groupthink. They think alike and may need input from outside to become more creative. Looking at alternative ways to departmentalize. Functional separation isn't always the most responsive form of organization. So what are the alternatives? Figure 8.5 shows 5 ways of a firm. Figure 8.5 shows 5 ways a firm can choose to departmentalize. One way is by product. A book publisher might have a trade book department. For books sold to the general public, a textbook department and a technical book department, each with separate development and marketing processes. Such product-focused departmentalization usually results in good customer relations. Figure 8.5. Ways to departmentalize. A publisher may want to departmentalize by product, a manufacturer by function, a pharmaceutical company by customer group, a computer company by geographic location, and a leather manufacturer by process. In each case, the structure must fit the firm's goals. By product, marketing manager, trade books, college texts, technical books. by function: president, production, marketing, finance, human resources, accounting. By customer group: president, consumers, commercial users, manufacturers, institutions. By geographic location: vice president, international operations, Canadian division, Japanese division, European division, Korean division. By process: production manager, cutters, dyers, stitchers. After the leather for a pair of LL Bean boots has been cut, it moves onto the sewing department, where workers like this perform precise needlework before sending the footwear down the line to have lace holes and other features attached. What are the advantages and disadvantages of departmentalizing by processes? What are the advantages and disadvantages of departmentalizing by process like this? Page 206. Some organizations departmentalize by customer group. A pharmaceutical company might have one department for the consumer market, another that calls on hospitals, the institutional market, and another that specifically targets doctors. You can see how customer groups can benefit from having specialists satisfying their needs. Page 207. Some firms group their units by geographic location because customers or customer tastes vary so greatly by region. Japan, Europe, and South America may deserve separate departments with obvious benefits. The decision about how to departmentalize depends on the nature of the product and the customers. A few firms find that it's most efficient to separate activities by process. For example, a firm that makes leather coats may have one department cut the leather, another dye it, and a third sew the coat together. Such specialization enables employees to do a better job because they can focus on learning a few critical skills. Some firms use a combination of departmentalization techniques to create hybrid forms. For example, a company could departmentalize by function, geographic location, and customer group. Test prep. Why are organizations becoming flatter? Why are some reasons for having a narrow span of control in an organization? What are the advantages and disadvantages of departmentalization? What are the various ways a firm can departmentalize? Organizational models. LO 8-4. Contrast the various organizational models. Now that we've explored the basic choices in organizational design, let's look in depth at 4 ways to structure an organization. 1. Line organizations. 2. Line and staff organizations. 3. Matrix style organizations. And 4. Cross-functional self-managed teams. You'll see that some of these models violate traditional management principles. The business community is in a period of transition, with some traditional organizational models giving way to new structures. Such transitions can be not only unsettling to employees and managers, but also fraught with problems and errors. Line organizations. A line organization has direct two-way lines of responsibility, authority, and communication running from the top to the bottom of the organization, with everyone reporting to only one supervisor. It is the oldest of the organizational structures. Many small businesses are organized this way. For example, a locally owned pizza parlor might have a general manager and a shift manager. All the general employees report to the shift manager, who reports to the general manager or owner. A line organization does not have any specialists who provide managerial support. There is no legal department, accounting department, human resource department, or information technology, IT department. Line organizations follow all of Fayol's traditional management rules. Line managers can issue orders, enforce discipline, and adjust the organization as conditions change. In large businesses, a line organization may have the disadvantages of being too inflexible, of having few specialists or experts to advise people along the line, and of having lengthy lines of communication. Thus, a line organization may be unable to handle complex decisions relating to thousands of products and tons of paperwork. Such organizations usually turn to a line and staff form of organization. Page 208. Line and staff organizations. To minimize the disadvantages of simple line organizations, many organizations have both line and staff personnel. Line personnel are responsible for directly achieving organizational goals and include production workers, distribution people, and marketing personnel. Staff personnel advise and assist line personnel in meeting their goals, and include those in marketing research, legal advising, accounting, information technology, and human resource management. See Figure 8.6 for a diagram of a line and staff organization. One important difference between line and staff personnel is authority. Line personnel have formal authority to make policy decisions that directly involve the operation of the business. Staff personnel have authority to advise line personnel and influence their decisions, but they can't make policy changes themselves. The line manager may seek or ignore the advice from staff personnel. Figure 8.6, a sample line and staff organization. Chief Executive Officer, Human Resource Department, Legal Department, Marketing Research Department, Plant Manager, Supervisor, 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 Assembly Line Workers, Assembly Line Workers, Assembly Line Workers. Many organizations benefit from expert staff advice on safety, legal issues, quality control, database, management, motivation, and investing. Staff personnel strengthen the line positions and are like well-paid. Staff personnel strengthen the line positions and are like well-paid consultants on the organization's payroll. McGraw-Hill Connect. I see it. Need help understanding line versus staff employees? Click on the video for a brief animated explanation.
This is Mary Ann, a research and development executive, and she has a bright idea, a brainstorming app that could be a big hit for students and business people alike. In order to translate her big idea into a working, functioning application that people can actually download and use, she'll have to advance it through her company's line personnel. Line personnel are the managers, supervisors, and workers who are directly responsible for achieving organizational goals within a company, like the production department that creates the code for Mary Ann's app, the distribution department that coordinates with various online marketplaces that want to feature the app, and the marketing group that will determine the best way to sell it. With a line structure, each employee has the opportunity to focus on their area of expertise, but when they need more support, they can turn to staff personnel to help advise and assist them with specialized matters. This includes the tech firm's lawyers and the human resources staff who will seek out new and existing employees to help bring Mary Ann's idea to life. It's important to note that staff can offer their expertise, but they do not have direct authority over line managers or their subordinates. With help from both line and staff personnel, Marianne is able to work her way up the chain of command and put her app into production. Talk about a great idea.
Matrix-style organizations, both line and line and staff organizational structures may suffer from inflexibility. Both allow for established lines of authority and communication, and work well in organizations with stable environments and slow product development, such as firms selling household appliances. In such firms, clear lines of authority and relatively fixed organizational structures are assets that ensure efficient operations. Today's economy, however, is dominated by high-growth industries like telecommunications, nanotechnology, robotics, biotechnology, and aerospace, where competition is stiff and the life cycle of new ideas is often very short. Emphasis is on product development, creativity, special projects, rapid communication, and interdepartmental teamwork. From those changes grew the popularity of the matrix organization, in which specialists from different parts of the organization work temporarily on specific projects, but still remain part of a line and staff structure. See Figure 8.7. In other words, a project manager can borrow people from different departments to help design and market the new product ideas and implement new technologies. Page 209. Figure 8.7. A matrix organization. In a matrix organization, project managers are in charge of teams made up of members of several departments. In this case, Project Manager 2 supervises employees A, B, C, and D. These employees are accountable not only to Project Manager 2, but also to the head of their individual departments. For example, Employee B, a marketing researcher, reports to Project Manager 2 and to the Vice President of Marketing. President, Vice President Project Management, Vice President Manufacturing, Vice President Marketing, Vice President Finance, Vice President Engineering. Project Manager 1, Project Manager 2, Employee A, Buyer, Employee B, Marketing Researcher, Employee C, Budget Analysis, Employee D, Project Designer, Project Manager 3. The matrix structure was originally developed in the aerospace industry and is now familiar in areas such as banking, management consulting firms, accounting firms, ad agencies, even school systems. Among its advantages, it gives managers flexibility in assigning people to projects. It encourages interorganizational cooperation and teamwork. It can produce creative solutions to product development problems. It makes efficient use of organizational resources. As for disadvantages, it can be costly and complex. It can confuse employees about where their loyalty belongs, with the project manager or with their functional unit. It requires good interpersonal skills as well as cooperative employees and managers to avoid communication problems. It may be only a temporary solution to a long-term problem within an organization. If you're thinking that matrix organizations violate some traditional managerial principles, you're right. Normally, a person can't work effectively for two bosses. Who has the real authority? Whose directive has first priority? Page 210. In reality, however, the system functions more effectively than you might imagine. To develop a new product, a project manager may be given temporary authority to borrow line personnel from production, marketing, and other line functions. The employees work together to complete the project and then return to their regular positions and departments. Thus, no one thus no one actually reports to more than one manager at a time. A potential real problem with matrix management, however, is that the project teams are not permanent. They form to solve a problem and then break up. There is little chance for cross-functional learning because teams often work together so briefly. Cross-functional self-managed teams. One solution to the temporary nature of matrix teams is to establish long-lived teams and empower them to work closely with suppliers, customers, and others to quickly and efficiently bring out new, high-quality products while giving great service. Cross-functional, self-managed teams are groups of employees from different departments who work together on a long-term basis, as opposed to the temporary teams established in matrix-style organizations. Self-managed means that they are empowered to make decisions without management approval. Often, these teams are able to select their own members and rate each other's performance. The barriers among design, engineering, marketing, distribution, information technology, and other functions fall when interdepartmental teams are created. Sometimes the teams are even inter-firm, that is, the members come from two or more companies. Cross-functional teams are empowered and collaborate to achieve a goal. They work best when leadership is shared. An engineer may lead the design of a new product, but a marketing expert may take the leadership position once it's ready for distribution. Going beyond organizational boundaries, cross-functional teams work best when the voice of the customer is brought in, especially in product development tasks. Suppliers and distributors should be on the team as well. A cross-functional team that includes customers, suppliers, and distributors goes beyond organizational boundaries. When suppliers and distributors are in other countries, cross-functional teams may share market information across national boundaries. Government coordinators may assist such projects, letting cross-functional teams break the barriers between government and business. You can think of a team of medical specialists in an operating room as a cross-functional, self-managed team. Doctors, nurses, technicians, and anesthesiologists from different departments and areas in the hospital work together to complete successful operations. What kinds of tasks do cross-functional, self-managed teams complete in an office or retail environment? Page 211. Cross-functional teams are only one way. Businesses can interact with other companies. Next, we look at others. Test prep. What is the difference between line and staff personnel? What management principle does a matrix-style organization challenge? What is the main difference between a matrix-style organization structure and the use of cross-functional teams? Managing the interactions among firms. LO8-5. Identify the benefits of inter-firm cooperation and coordination. Whether it involves customers, suppliers, distributors, or the government, networking uses communications, technology, and other means to link organizations and allow them to work together on common objectives. Let's explore this concept further. Transparency and virtual organizations. Networked organizations are so closely linked online that each can find out what the others are doing in real time. Real time simply means the present moment or the actual time in which an event takes place. The internet has allowed companies to send real-time data to organizational partners as it is developed or collected. The result is transparency. See Chapter 7, which occurs when a company is so open to other companies that electronic information is shared as if the companies were one. With this integration, two companies can work as closely as two departments in traditional firms. Can you see the implications for organizational design? Most organizations are no longer self-sufficient or self-contained. Rather, they are part of a vast network of global businesses that often work closely together. An organization chart showing what people do within any one organization is simply not complete because the organization is part of a much larger system of firms. A modern chart would show people in different organizations and indicate how they are networked. Networked organizational structures. Networked organizational structures tend to be flexible. A company may work with a design expert from other company. A company may work with a design expert from another company in Italy for a year and then not need that firm anymore. It then may hire an expert from a company in another country for the next stage of a project. Such a temporary network made of replaceable firms that join and leave as needed is a virtual corporation. See Figure 8.8. This is quite different from a traditional organizational structure. In fact, traditional managers sometimes have trouble adapting to the speed of change and the impermanence of relationships and networking. We discuss adaptation to change below. First, we describe how organizations use benchmarking and outsourcing to manage their interactions with other firms. Page 212, Figure 8.8, a virtual corporation. A virtual corporation has no permanent ties to the firms that do its production, distribution, legal, and other work. Such firms are flexible enough to adapt to changes in the market quickly. Production firm. Distribution firm, advertising agency, design firm, legal firm, accounting firm. Are examples of the core of a firm. Organizations historically tried to do all functions themselves. Each had its own department for accounting, finance, marketing, production, and so on. As we've noted, today's organizations look to other organizations for help in areas where they do not generate world-class quality. Benchmarking compares an organization's practices, processes, and products against the world's best to improve their own products. One classic example is Seattle-based K2 Sports, a company that makes skis, snowboards, inline skates, and other related products. It benchmarked the aerospace industry to understand piezoelectric technology to help reduce vibration in its snowboards. The aerospace industry uses the technology for wings on planes. It learned from the cable television industry how to braid layers of fiberglass and carbon, and then adapt that knowledge to make the first fiberglass skis. Today, the company still benchmarks the best practices of companies to target reduction in carbon emissions and sustainable packaging. Benchmarking also has a more directly competitive purpose. For example, in retailing, Target and Walmart compete intensely for market share. Target may compare benchmark itself to Walmart to see what, if anything, Walmart does better. Target will then try to improve its practices or processes to become even better than Walmart. In the fast food industry, competitors often research market leader Chick-fil-A on benchmarks such as order accuracy, food quality, innovation, and cleanliness. Companies today are employing social media benchmarking to compare metrics such as posting times, follower counts, and chats, and engagement level compared to key competitors. If an organization can't do as well as the best in, say, shipping, it will try to outsource the function to an organization like UPS or FedEx that specializes in shipping outsourcing. Remember, means assigning one or more functions, such as accounting, production, security, maintenance, and legal work, to outside organizations. Even small firms are involved in outsourcing. We've already discussed some problems with outsourcing, especially when companies outsource to other companies outsource to other countries. Some functions, such as information management and marketing, may be too important to assign to outside firms. In that case, the organization should benchmark the best firms and restructure its departments to try to be equally good. It is important to remember that companies in other countries often outsource their functions to companies in the United States. We call that insourcing, and it is the source of many jobs in the United States. Page 213. When a firm has completed its outsourcing process, the remaining functions are its core competencies. Those functions it can do as well as or better than any other organization in the world. For example, Nike is great at designing and marketing athletic shoes. Those are its core competencies. Nike continuously looks to protect its core competencies through its Nike Sports Research Laboratory. It then outsources manufacturing to other companies that assemble shoes better and less expensively than Nike can. Nike's core competencies are designing and marketing athletic shoes. The company outsources other functions, i.e., important example, manufacturing to other companies that assemble shoes better and cheaper than Nike could do on its own. What are the advantages of focusing on the company's core competencies? What are the disadvantages? Adapting to change, LO 8-6. Explain how organizational culture can help businesses adapt to change. Once you have formed an organization, you must be prepared to adapt to structure. Once you have formed an organization, you must be prepared to adapt the structure to changes in the market. Netflix evolved from being a company that shipped DVDs to a streaming service and original content provider. That's not always easy to do. Over time, an organization can get stuck and inflexible in its ways. Employees have a tendency to say, "That's the way we've always done things. If it isn't broken, don't fix it." Managers also get complacent. They may say they have 20 years experience, when in fact, they've had 1 year's experience 20 times. Introducing change is thus one of the hardest challenges facing any manager. Nonetheless, change is what's happening at General Motors, GM, Tesla, Amazon, Meta, and other companies eager to become more competitive. If you have old facilities, products, or technologies that are no longer efficient, you have to get rid of them. That's exactly why GM is increasing its focus on electric vehicles and Meta is expanding its long-term efforts on the metaverse. The internet created whole new opportunities, not only to sell to customers directly, but also to ask them questions and provide them with any information they want. To win market share, companies must coordinate the efforts of their traditional departments and their information technology staff to create friendly, easy-to-manage interactions. Younger people today are referred to as digital natives because they grew up with the internet, cell phones, and other technology. Using high-tech devices is second nature to them. On the other hand, companies often need to retrain older employees to be more tech-savvy. While the ease and immediacy of communication created by technology may be powerful, being constantly connected to work does have its downsides. See the Adapting to Change box, page 214. Adapting to Change, Finding a Work-Life Balance in a Post-Pandemic World. Since most people are connected online 24/7, many find it difficult to truly be off work. Emails can come in all times. Emails can come in at all times of the day, while Slack conversations continue scrolling long after 5 o'clock has passed. And with the increase in remote work brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, some say they put in more hours at home than they do at the office. As a result, maintaining a work-life balance is getting more and more difficult. Many companies expect their employees to be available whenever they are needed. Workers fear they may demonstrate a lack of commitment to their job if they do not constantly stay in touch. These under-pressure employees report far high levels of stress compared to workers who are not expected to stay connected at all times. This increased stress also leads to health problems such as headaches, back pain, and other ailments that cost both the employee and the employer. It's important for managers to remember that while technology can be an amazing tool that enables people to work faster and smarter, it can also tether employees to their jobs. Other countries have passed right to disconnect laws that stop employers from contacting workers by phone or email once they've clocked out. Without similar boundaries in place, some American employees have taken it upon themselves to achieve a positive work-life balance by quiet quitting. These workers refuse to work beyond 40 hours a week, while also avoiding advancement opportunities like extra training as well as off-hours social events with colleagues. While no job can be 100% stress-free, managers can avoid creating quiet quitters by setting clear limits about appropriate work hours that reduce the risk of burnout. Companies that are the most successful in adapting to change have these common traits. 1. They listen to customers. 2. They have inspirational managers who drive new ideas throughout the organization. And 3. They often have had a close call with going out of business. The COVID-19 pandemic, for example, caused many companies around the world to employ rapid changes or face the prospect of shutting down. Of course, adapting to change is difficult, but not changing can be disastrous. Restructuring for empowerment. To empower employees, firms often must reorganize dramatically to make frontline workers their most important people. Restructuring is redesigning an organization so it can more effectively and efficiently serve its customers. At one time, workers such as department store sales associates and front desk staff in hotels weren't permitted to make day-to-day decisions. Instead, managers had the responsibility of directing the work of the frontline people. This process often frustrated both managers and frontline workers, who felt their contributions were not appreciated or considered valuable. The organization chart in a typical firm looked much like a pyramid. As many service-oriented organizations empowered frontline workers, the traditional organizational structure was literally turned upside down. An inverted organization has contact people like nurses at the top and top management at the bottom. Management layers are few, and the manager's job is to assist and support frontline people, not boss them around. Figure 8.9 illustrates the difference between an inverted and a traditional organizational structure. Figure 8.9 comparison of an inverted organizational structure and a traditional organizational structure. Top management, middle management, supervisory management, frontline workers, traditional organization. Empowered frontline workers, often in teams, support personnel, top management, inverted organization. Companies based on this organizational structure support frontline personnel with internal and external databases, advanced communication and training systems, and professional assistance. Naturally, this means frontline people have to be better educated, better trained, and better paid than in the past. It takes a lot of trust for top managers to implement such a system, but when they do, the payoff in customer satisfaction and profits is often well worth the effort. In the past, managers also controlled information and that gave them power and control. In more progressive organizations today, everyone shares information, often through an elaborate database system, and among firms as well, as within them. For a more detailed explanation, see Appendix B. No matter what organizational model you choose or how much you empower your employees, the secret to successful organizational change is to focus on customers and give them what they want. Page 215, Creating a Change-Oriented Organizational Structure. Creating a change-oriented organizational culture. Any organizational change is bound to cause some stress and resistance among members. Firms adapt best when their culture is already change-oriented. Organizational or corporate culture is the widely shared values within an organization that foster unity and cooperation to achieve common goals. Usually the culture of an organization is reflected in its stories, traditions, and myths. Each McDonald's restaurant has the same feel, look, and atmosphere. In short, each has a similar organizational culture. It's obvious from visiting many McDonald's restaurants that the culture emphasizes quality, service, cleanliness, and value. An organizational culture can also be negative. Have you ever been in an organization? Have you ever been in an organization where you feel no one cares about service or quality? The clerks may seem uniformly glum, indifferent, and testy. Their mood pervades the atmosphere, and patrons become unhappy or upset. It may be hard to believe an organization, especially a profit-making one, can be run so badly and still survive. Clearly then, when you search for a job, study the organizational culture to see whether you will thrive in it. Some of the best organizations have cultures that emphasize service to others, especially customers. The atmosphere reflects friendly, caring people who enjoy working together to provide a good product at a reasonable price. Companies that have such cultures have less need for close supervision of employees. That usually means fewer policy manuals, organization charts, and formal rules, procedures, and controls. The key to a productive culture is mutual trust. You get such trust by giving it. The very best companies stress high morale and ethical values such as honesty, reliability, fairness, environmental protection, and social involvement. We've been talking as if organizational matters were mostly controllable by management. In fact, the formal structure is just one element that the total organizational system, including its culture, in fact, the formal structure is just one element of the total organizational system, including its culture. The informal organization is of equal or even greater importance. Let's explore this notion next. Managing the informal organization. All organizations have two organizational systems. The formal organization details lines of responsibility, authority, and position. It's the structure shown on organization charts. The other system is the informal organization, the system that develops spontaneously as employees meet and form cliques, relationships, and lines of authority separate from the formal organization. It's the human side of the organization that doesn't show on any organization chart. Page 216. The informal organization is the system that develops as employees meet and form relationships. The grapevine, the unofficial flow of information among employees, is the nerve center of the informal organization. How does the informal organization affect the work environment? No organization can operate effectively without both types of organization. The formal system is often too slow and bureaucratic to let the organization adapt quickly, although it does provide helpful guides and lines of authority for routine situations. The informal organization is often too unstructured and emotional to allow careful, reasoned decision-making on critical matters. It's extremely effective, however, in generating creative solutions to short-term problems and creating camaraderie and teamwork among employees. In any organization, it's wise to learn quickly who is important in the informal organization. Following formal rules and procedures can take days. Who in the organization knows how to obtain supplies immediately without the normal procedures? Which administrative assistance should you see if you want your work given first priority? Answers to these questions help people work effectively in many organizations. The informal organization's nerve center is the grapevine, the system through which unofficial information flows between and among managers and employees. Key people in the grapevine usually have considerable influence. In the old us versus them system of organizations, where managers and employees were often at odds, the informal system hindered effective management. In more open organizations, managers and employees work together to set objectives and design procedures. The informal organization is an invaluable managerial asset that can promote harmony among workers and establish the corporate culture. As effective as the informal organization may be in creating group cooperation, it can still be equally powerful in resisting management directives. Employees may form unions, go on strike together, and generally disrupt operations. Learning to create the right corporate culture and work within the informal organization is thus a key to managerial success. Test prep. What is an inverted organization? Why do organizations outsource functions? What is organizational culture? Page 217. Summary. LO8-1. Outline the basic principles of organizational management. What is happening today to American businesses? They are adjusting to changing markets. That is a normal function in a capitalist economy. There will be big winners like Google and Meta, and big losers as well. The key to success is remaining flexible and adapting to the changing times. What are the principles of organizational management? Structuring an organization means devising a division of labor, sometimes resulting in specialization, setting up teams or departments, and assigning responsibility and authority. It includes allocating resources such as funds, assigning specific tasks, and establishing procedures for accomplishing the organizational objectives. Managers also have to make ethical decisions about how to treat workers. LO8-2. Compare the organizational theories of Fayol and Weber. What were Fayol's basic principles? Fayol introduced principles such as unity of command, hierarchy of authority, division of labor, subordination of individual interests to the general interest, authority, clear communication channels, order, and equity. What principles did Weber add? Weber added principles of bureaucracy such as job descriptions, written rules and decision guidelines, consistent procedures, and staffing and promotions based on qualifications. LO8-3. Evaluate the choices managers make in structuring organizations. What are the four major choices in structuring organizations? Choices to make in structuring and restructuring organizations cover 1. Centralization versus decentralization. 2. Breadth of span of control. 3. Tall versus flat organizational structures. And 4. Type of departmentalization. What are the latest trends in structuring? Departments are often replaced or supplemented by matrix organizations and cross-functional teams that decentralize authority. The span of control becomes larger as employees become self-directed. Another trend is to eliminate managers and flatten organizations. LO8-4. Contrast the various organizational models. What are the two major organizational models? Two traditional forms of organization are 1. Line of organizations, 2. Line and staff organizations. A line organization has clearly defined responsibility and authority, is easy to understand, and provides each worker with only one supervisor. The expert advice of staff assistants in a line and staff organization helps in areas such as safety, quality control, computer technology, human resource management, and investing. What are the key alternatives to the major organizational models? Matrix organizations assign people to projects temporarily and encourage inter-organizational cooperation and teamwork. Cross-functional self-managed teams have all the benefits of the matrix style and are long-term. Page 218. LO8-5. Identify the benefits of inter-firm cooperation and coordination. What are the major concepts involved in inter-firm communications? Networking uses communications technology and other means to link organizations and allow them to work together in common objectives. A virtual corporation is the network organization of replaceable firms that join and leave as needed. Benchmarking tells firms how their performance measures up to that of their competitors in specific functions. The company may then outsource the companies that perform its weaker functions more effectively and efficiently. The functions that are left are the firm's core competencies. What is an inverted organization? An inverted organization places employees at the top of the hierarchy. Managers are at the bottom to train and assist employees. LO 8-6. Explain how organizational culture can help businesses adapt to change. What is organizational culture? Organizational or corporate. What is organizational culture? Organizational or corporate culture consists of the widely shared values within an organization that foster unity and cooperation to achieve common goals. What is the difference between the formal and informal organization of a firm? The formal organization details lines of responsibility, authority, and position. It's the structure shown on organization charts. The informal organization is the system that develops spontaneously as employees meet and form cliques, relationships, and lines of authority outside the formal organization. It's the human side of the organization. The informal organization is an invaluable managerial asset that often promotes harmony among workers and establishes the corporate culture. As effective as the informal organization may be in creating group cooperation, it can still be equally powerful in resisting management directives. Key terms: benchmarking, bureaucracy, centralized authority, chain of command, core competencies, cross-functional self-managed teams, decentralized authority, departmentalization, digital natives, economies of scale, flat organizational structure, formal organization, hierarchy, informal organization, inverted organization, line personnel, matrix organization, networking, organizational or corporate culture, organization chart, real-time, restructuring, span of control, staff personnel, tall organizational structure, virtual corporation. Critical thinking. Now that you have learned some of the basic principles of organization, pause and think about where you have already applied such concepts yourself, or when you have been a part. Now that you have learned some of the basic principles of organization, pause and think about where you have already applied such concepts yourself, or when you have been part of an organization that did. 1. Did you find a division of labor necessary and helpful? 2. Were you assigned specific tasks or left on your own to decide what to do? 3. Were promotions strictly based on qualifications as Weber suggested? What other factors may have been considered in promotion decisions? 4. What problems seem to emerge when an organization gets larger? 5. What organizational changes might you recommend to the auto companies, the airline industry, technology firms, fast food restaurants? Page 219. Putting principles to work. Purpose: to construct a simple organization chart. Exercise: an organization chart maps the relationships among people working in an organization that illustrates who reports to whom. Use the drawing tools at smartdraw.com to create an organization chart for a company with the following employees. 1. CEO, who is in charge of the entire company. 2. Marketing director, production director, and chief financial officer, CFO, who reports directly to the CEO. 3. The marketing director oversees 4 marketing managers. The production manager directs 3 frontline managers, and the CFO directs 3 supervisors. 4. Each manager and supervisor oversees multiple workers. For simplicity, include only 3 workers under each manager, supervisor on your chart. Developing career skills. Key: team, analytics, communication, technology. 1. There is no better way to understand the effects of having many layers of management on communication accuracy than the game of message relay. Choose 7 or more members of the class and have them leave the classroom. Then choose one person to read the following paragraph and another student to listen. Call in one of the students from outside and have the listener tell them what information was in the paragraph. Then bring in another student and have the new listener repeat the information to that person. Continue the process with all those who left the room. Do not allow anyone in the class to offer corrections, as each listener becomes the storyteller in turn. In this way, all the students can hear how the facts become distorted over time. The distortions and mistakes are often quite humorous, but they are not so funny in organizations such as Ford Motor Company, which once had 22 layers of management. Here's the paragraph. Dealers in the Midwestern region have received over 130 complaints about steering on the new Commander and Road Handler models of our SUVs. Apparently, the front suspension system is weak and the ball joints are wearing too fast. This causes slippage in the linkage and results in oversteering. Mr. Bernstein has been notified, but so far only 213 of 4,300 dealers have received repair kits. 2. Describe some informal groups within an organization with which you are familiar at school or work. What have you noticed about how those groups help or hinder progress in the organization? 3. Imagine you are working for Kitchen Magic, an appliance manufacturer that produces dishwashers. A competitor introduces a new dishwasher that uses sound waves not only to clean even the most burned-on food, but also to sterilize dishes and silverware. You need to develop a similar offering fast, or your company will lose market share. Write an email to management outlining the problem and explaining your rationale for recommending use of a cross-functional team to respond quickly. 4. Divide the class into teams of 5. Each team should imagine your firm, a producer of athletic shoes, has been asked to join a virtual network. How might you minimize the potential problems of joining? Begin by defining a virtual corporation and listing its advantages and disadvantages. Each team should report its solutions to the class. 5. A growing number of work groups, including management, are cross-functional and self-managed. To practice working in such an organization, break into groups of 5 or so students, preferably with different backgrounds and interests. Each group must work together to prepare a report on the advantages and disadvantages of working in teams. Many of the problems and advantages of cross-functional, self-managed teams should emerge in your group as you try to compete Many of the problems and advantages of cross-functional, self-managed teams should emerge in your group as you try to complete this assignment. Each group should report to the class how it handled the problems and benefited from the advantages. Page 220. Career exploration. If you are interested in pursuing a major in organizational strategy and management, here are a few careers to consider. Find out about the tasks performed, skills needed, pay and opportunity outlook in these fields in the Occupational Outlook Handbook, OOH, at bls.gov. Top executive. Works in nearly every industry in both large and small businesses and nonprofit organizations, ranging from companies in which there is only one employee to firms with thousands of employees. Management analyst. Proposes ways to improve an organization's operations and efficiency. Change management consultant. Change management consultant specializes in measuring the impact of change in an organization and applying strategies to implement changes within the organization.
Video communications company Zoom is on a mission to do one thing: deliver happiness. It may seem odd that a company would target an emotional state in its customers, but this is actually a strategy that has been integral to Zoom since its inception.
From the beginning, our CEO, Eric Yuan, has sought to build a product that makes customers happy. And that means we stay close to our customers and focus on solving their pain points to deliver them a moment of happiness, an experience with a product that just works. And that's how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors. And it's a strategy that has worked incredibly well for us.
Because this has been Zoom's strategy since the beginning, the company has built up its culture, HR practices, and organizational structure in order to support it. Zoom has paid careful attention to its company culture, the set of shared assumptions which determine how employees perceive, think about, and react to their work environment. For Zoom, company culture boils down to one word: care. It was important that employees could assume that they would be treated with care, and that they must treat others with care in turn.
The value of caring infuses everything we do. Because management cares, we're always looking for new ways to develop employees. Because employees care, there's a commitment to improving and boosting not just ourselves, but one another. We have a volunteer group here at Zoom called the Happy Crew. Their goal is to spread happiness within the company through team events, holiday celebrations, and much more.
The effect of Zoom's culture is that employees are more productive and more committed to the company's strategy.
We wanted to create an environment where Zoom employees feel comfortable bringing their whole selves to work, and they feel a sense of belonging to the organization. We know that if employees feel like they're part of the company and they enjoy working for us, they'll be self-motivated to deliver happiness to our customers and to grow themselves. It creates a positive ecosystem in which we get the best results.
But culture alone cannot support a company's growth strategy. Culture must work in tandem with HR practices, the activities a company uses to manage its human capital. Through its HR practices, Zoom delivers significant freedoms and copious benefits to employees.
We offer employees flexibility around when and where they want to work. We offer competitive compensation, wellness benefits, unlimited time off, and we also offer comprehensive healthcare benefits. We offer immersive experiences for internships and new grad hiring, which essentially is building the future leaders of the company.
Zoom's organizational structure supports the company's strategy of delivering happiness. Organizational structure is the formal system of tasks and reporting relationships that helps employees achieve the company's goals. Zoom's organizational structure stresses easy and open communication up and down the chain of command.
As a tech company growing at such a rapid pace, we do have relatively a firm structure within, but that doesn't mean that ideas and information only come and flow from the top down. Management is extremely open to implementing ideas from employees. They're appreciative that Zoomies are talented and hardworking, and their input can be a value at no matter what position or role that you play here at Zoom.
The culture of caring, the HR practices that provide benefits and flexibility, and the organizational structure that promotes strong communication all work together to support Zoom's happiness-building strategy. CEO Eric Yuan understood the need for this alignment from the beginning, and Zoom has reaped the rewards of his foresight. The platform emerged as the leading video software used during the COVID-19 pandemic and counted over hundreds of thousands of daily meeting participants.
It comes down to making sure that our customers are happy. And the only way that we can make sure our customers are happy is to ensure that our employees are happy. And we really feel that it's just as simple as that.
Company culture refers to a set of widely shared values that fosters unity and cooperation within an organization to achieve common goals. The mission at Zoom, a video communications company, is to build a culture that focuses on making both employees and customers as happy as possible. While Zoom became especially popular with companies during the COVID-19 pandemic, spreading a message of contentment has been a core value at the company since its founding. In order to make customers happy, employees at Zoom must stay in close contact with clients and focus on solving their problems quickly. Achieving this starts with a strong company culture supported by generous human resource practices and solid organizational structures. Zoom also pays close attention to staff feedback to determine how employees think about and react to their work environment. Ideally, the company wants to communicate a sense of care to both customers and employees. For instance, managers at Zoom are always looking for ways to develop employees and their skills, which in turn causes staffers to care more about their jobs. This sense of commitment then extends to interactions with other employees as staffers seek to boost not just themselves but one another. Zoom also keeps the mood in the office light through a volunteer group of staffers called the Happy Crew, who utilize activities like holiday parties, team events, and much more to spread happiness throughout the company. One major benefit of Zoom's positive culture is that employees are more productive and committed to the company strategy. By creating an environment where employees feel comfortable, staffers bring their best selves to work and develop a strong sense of belonging with their colleagues. These self-motivated employees are then able to continuously deliver happiness to customers, which ensures that the company's business ecosystem stays upbeat. Of course, company culture alone cannot support a business's growth strategy. Human resource practices that provide employees with added benefits and flexibility are also necessary to get the most out of staffers. Zoom's benefits include competitive compensation, unlimited time off, comprehensive health care, and flexibility on when and where employees want to work. The company also offers experiences to help build future leaders at the company. Zoom's managerial structure stresses the importance of open communication up and down the chain of command, ensuring that every voice at the company gets heard. According to CEO Eric Yuan, This commitment to making employees happy extends to Zoom's hundreds of thousands of daily users, ensuring that the company will stay relevant in ever-evolving office environments. Thinking it over. 1. Why does Zoom place so much focus on employee happiness? 2. Why is it important for a company's culture, human resource practices, and organizational structure to be complementary in operations? 3. What elements are generally considered part of an organization's culture? Page 221, page 222. Notes. Chapter 9, Production and Operations Management, page 223.